If you don't like what's going on within NPR, you think that there's too much bias there, we can address that. But you don't need to gut the entire Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Yeah, there is no bias in NPR. I think that's total BS. But the whole Corporation for Public Broadcasting helps so many small radio stations. It so obviously serves a public purpose to have that be funded. Like so many of these tribal radio stations, these small radio stations rely on Corporation for Public Broadcasting for a lot of their budget, like 30%, because they're in poor areas. And people still needed to stay connected. That's why we as a society decided that government should fund roads and the postal service and things that connect us as a society and create a blanket level of connectedness, like broadband. That goes along the same lines. So you're only cutting $9 billion here. These $9 billion are possibly some of the most important $9 billion that you could possibly cut, right? The Corporation for Public Broadcasting and U.S. aid. Now, it's a good thing that the Republicans, the more moderate ones, exempted the PEPFAR cuts from this. That would be a disaster. Like, they were initially going to cut initiatives that would prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. The life-saving measures that were cut in the initial stop work order in the beginning of the Trump administration, that's still devastating, and a lot of countries haven't even recovered from that. This would have just enshrined some of the preventative measures that PEPFAR takes. But again, we're still cutting billions from U.S. aid. I don't know exactly what the billions consist of, because $1 billion here is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and $8 billion is U.S. AID. There's a whole thing about USAID funding abortions, and it's like, yes, that's not technically allowed in the legislation, but I think it was a one-off thing. Like, they don't formally do that. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But most of what USAID does is very, very good. Like, you can point out some things that are controversial, like LGBTQ acceptance in certain countries, gender studies in Afghanistan, stuff that I would think is beneficial, right? If we fund something for, like, women's rights somewhere, I bet a bunch of Republicans would support that. It's like LGBTQ rights, that's just like 20 years behind that. And I mean, in 20 years, people are gonna think the same about LGBTQ rights as they do about women's rights, and it's gonna be everyone's gonna accept it. But right now they don't. I would venture to guess that most of what they cut from USAID is along those kind of political partisan lines of we don't want to develop the world in sort of a leftist progressive position, which I disagree with. I think that's massively beneficial, human rights wise. It's a good thing that the PEPFAR cuts are not going to be enacted, because that would have a disastrous humanitarian impact.
Entity, the program that provides for so much support, particularly for those in rural places.
Murkowski was one of 3 Republicans who voted to block the bill from the floor. The others were Mitch McConnell and Susan Collins. Vice President Vance had to break a tie to start debate. Democrats accused Republicans of ceding too much power of the purse to President Trump.
Being part of an independent and co-equal branch has to mean something. It means that we're the legislature and we control the purse strings. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that if the president wants something, you must do it.
Absolutely, and that's the main confusion with the Supreme Court case that just happened. At least the emergency measure that they took, where they were like, Trump's reduction is in force, right? The whole Trump administration is branding those as cuts, when reduction in force legislation says you cannot lay off workers just to cut money. You must do it either at the shortfall of money, you can do it because workers aren't doing anything, or because you're reorganizing how a lesser amount of workers can accomplish the same task. You cannot do it just to cut money, right? And the Trump administration has done a lot of this stuff, like fund impoundments. Their own government office of accountability said that they violated the impoundment, the ICA. When they impounded EV infrastructure funds from the IRA, right? They've done this over and over and over again. This is and then his executive order impounded funds from NPR and PBS, right? He's absolutely trampled over separation of powers. He's absolutely trampled over the Constitution here. Unfortunately, none of it's immediately illegal. It's all tested in the courts, of course. But it's immoral. It's highly immoral, anti-American. We have Congress for a reason, so the president can't just trample over U.S. aid, which saves which has saved millions of lives, tens of millions of lives. The most successful medical achievements in human history, PMI, cholera initiatives, tuberculosis initiatives, PEPFAR, right? He just cuts them. Stop work order. For Doge, like Doge is in and of itself is a separation of powers issue. So it's like none of this is waste, fraud, and abuse. It's all ideological. It's like NPR and PBS. How is that waste, fraud, and abuse? NPR is very, very good journalism and articles, and PBS does as well. If anyone would like to point out where NPR and PBS have a bias, like of course I'm more left, so. I think that just reporting on the facts makes you left biased. I think you have to do very, very interesting mental gymnastics to have a true fact-based right-wing outlet. All the fact checkers are left-wing. Like 80% of the claims rated false are from right-wing people. I think this is pretty obvious. Everyone at universities is left-wing. Seems like the more people are familiar with facts and history, they seem to be left-wing. So I think it's completely baseless to call NPR and PBS propaganda outlets. So I think they're very, very fair. So yet another piece of bad legislation, made a little bit better by these few Republicans who are opposing it. But the fact that this is even proposed is absurd. The level of anti-humanitarianism, anti-constitutionality, like. I don't believe that half of the people in the Senate are this bad.